Thank you for joining us on the New Bridge Radio Show. You can also catch us online at newbridgeradio.com. Find us on Facebook under New Bridge Radio Show or follow us on Twitter at New Bridge Radio. Now let's connect you with what's next.
And welcome back to the New Bridge Radio Show on WLTK-DB. Let's talk. I am your host, Kevin Mackey, and we are connecting you to what's next in your life. And we're here to remind you that you are important to this world, and we sure are glad to have you along on this episode of the New Bridge Radio Show. I also want to thank you all for listening. I mean, this week and last week, we came up with numbers that were actually surprising to me. We've picked up a lot of new listeners, and I just want to say thank you. And I'm very, very grateful to have you along because this show, it has been an important endeavor for me. And remember, if you want to get in touch with us at the New Bridge Radio Show, all you got to do is email. Our email address is thenewbridgeradioshow@gmail.com. You can email us and let us know what you like about the show. Or you can email us and let us know what you hate if you must. Also, if you would like to be our guest on the New Bridge Radio Show, let us know because we love connecting to people who have connected to what was next in their life. And you never know who you could help. So if you think you have a compelling story, drop us a line and let us know, and we may have you on the show. As you all know, I'm a Reiki master, a hypnotist, and an intuitive advisor. If you would like to book a session with me, you can on my website. All you got to do is go to limestreetwellness.com and click on the book now, and you can book an intuitive reading or you can book a distant Reiki session, and I will get back to you, and you will not regret it. Reiki is a great way to put yourself into a relaxed state to help with healing. So feel free to do that. Use the promo code BRIDGE to get 15% off your session. So I'm very excited for tonight's guest because she is returning to the New Bridge Radio Show. And we had her on before, and she talked about traveling to other countries. And that episode, the travel episode that Heather Ribeiro did, has been one of our most popular shows on the New Bridge Radio Show. And when I asked her to come back, I was so thrilled. I was so thrilled that she had the time to come and visit with us. And this time she's coming on the New Bridge Radio Show to talk about connecting to nature. And you are not going to want to miss this. I want to welcome Heather Ribeiro back to the New Bridge Radio Show. Welcome, Heather.
Yay. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited. I have been thinking about this all day long because you always have the best energy.
I just laugh a lot.
You laugh a lot and you bring so much into the atmosphere. You know, when we've done forest outings in the past, it's always interesting to watch people who don't know you all of a sudden just connect with you and be like, there's something about that girl. I just love her.
Yeah, I think there's something too when you put a group or anyone in nature, you always can find a common thing to enjoy about another person. And I love and embrace diversity in all ways in nature and in people. So nature is a great way, I feel, to bring people together, to find a certain common ground, to understand each other in a certain way. The tree's been there. It's very humbling because the tree has been there longer than the both of you, generally.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's humbling.
And this is how you and I met, is I was going through this process of having worked on the graveyard shift. And I did it for years and years, Heather, to the point where, I didn't feel like a normal person anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't really, at the time, I didn't really understand how much it had affected my everyday existence. And I didn't realize how disconnected I was completely from the world
Right.
until I actually got laid off. And here I was, just kind of easing back into life. And
Right.
I ended up on a forest walk with you and a few others. And it really started to change in that experience. And so tell me a little bit about how you came to connect to
Well,
nature.
first, I'm so glad that you shared that about yourself. How you were on a graveyard shift, so your energy and your people and your spirit, your whole body of your DNA of who you're going against a grain.
Mhm.
So we are our ancestors, we our bodies and our energies inside, that our bodies have a memory, and we have that internal clock. We're supposed to wake up at a certain general time and go to bed, and you're going against the grain. So you were absolutely feeling this, going uphill both ways. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter how much sleep you get or whatnot. You're going against your own nature, your own nature of your DNA. And that is a hard struggle. So coming back to trails and nature outside, I feel like that is the best way to bring someone back from something that is inside of them that is not adjusted and not being in a line with their human nature. Um, Nature, trees, trails. My favorite is rocks, actually, too, because they have been here for so long, and that part of evolutionary changing, growing, reseeding, and that process has been thousands and thousands of years, since even before we were elevated to where we're at now. um, Rocks, I have such a lovely nature with myself, for sure, because they've been the longest. They're
Mhm.
in space. Like, rocks are so magical, the density of them. Two rocks can be the same size, but one can weigh so much more than the other.
Mhm.
So it's always like a surprise too. And with how big a tree is, half of it you see on the top, but a lot of it's underground, and
Right.
it's reaching towards something else as well as reaching towards the sky. So nature is such an amazing way to bring back your own human balance, to try and set yourself in that way. So I'm so glad that you found that, and that helped guide you set your human balance back in line too. And things take some time.
Mhm.
And I think that's what some people might forget. We live in this instant, so quick, I want it now world, that it might take more than just one nature walk
Right.
or one hike to bring back some balance for yourself if you feel you've lost it.
Exa
So,
that really is a good point that you made because, yeah, when I was doing that work on that particular time of night, it no matter how much sleep I got, I was always tired. I always
yeah,
felt like whenever I had spare time, all I wanted to do was just, sleep.
yeah,
And you just never catch up. What was interesting is I started connecting to nature and doing it daily. I started to get more energy, oddly enough, and I started to notice it in everything.
yeah.
Um, all of a sudden, I was, that melancholy I had all the time just started to go.
Yeah, it softens the blow a little bit. It's one of the number one, I feel. Well, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I
Mhm,
do feel like it helps a lot with, as you said, melancholy, some depressional syndromes that people can find that they might have, where they're like, nothing's really wrong. I'm just not feeling like myself lately. If you generally can include yourself in nature at some point, even for 15 minutes a day or not, you will feel better. You really, really do. I can testify to that. Sometimes there's a little trail and there's all kinds of little nature nooks everywhere. So I encourage people, wherever you're at or wherever you're going, this time of year is holiday. Some people find family stressful and holiday events stressful.
Really?
So,
Who?
right, I encourage people to find what I call a nature nook. And we live in such a great place that there's a lot of like little tiny park coves or little trails or even little green belts in neighborhoods behind houses or whatnot. And you don't have to walk far. It doesn't have to be a trail, but just to go sit in it and be in it for 5 to 10 minutes, remove yourself, sit in it, and come back to the family, and you'll feel your patience is better.
Exactly. There's something else to that I found, when I started doing, walking through the local park here. There's a local park to me called Tambark Park.
Hmm.
And it looks from the road, Tambark Park looks small. It looks
Yes,
like it's not anything. But once you get into it, it's huge.
yes.
And what I found amazing, I'm not sure if you've experienced this too. There are several bridges in Tambark Park and there's a steady creek that runs underneath there. And as I was standing on this bridge several times, there are several bridges in this park. What's interesting is just standing over water seems to do some things so much to your mental capacity, and it has such a calming effect. Have you ever experienced that too, where you're just standing near or over water, and all of a sudden it's just like you're saying goodbye to all that stress?
The stress and the calm. Yeah. You know, there's that whole element that goes together with water and everything. It's a subconscious thing that is also, I think, built inside of us from our ancestors from, thousands of years, is water is so precious.
Mhm.
And so I feel like when you are around it or you hear it or even you see it inside our DNA process, it gives us this calm. It's going to be okay. We have water.
Mhm.
We have water. It's going to be okay. We are made up of 98, we're made up of water basically as human beings also.
Mhm.
So I feel like it intunes and kind of gives us a little bit of that calmness just from our ancestors knowing that water is a very, our life source. So
Mhm.
yeah, I feel that way a lot. Wherever I live or wherever I go in my life, I've found that I need water by me,
Mhm.
either a lake, a river, a stream, or something like that. So I feel really lucky that I can live in those places. In Washington, we're lucky to have all these little water nooks, just like nature nooks. We've got little water nooks everywhere.
Right.
One of the fun things I did this last summer, as you were saying, finding nature and its calmingness. We're lucky enough to live around a lot of green belts and a lot of nature, but I really had been seeking this last year incorporating art in nature and
Uh-huh.
adding some of that humanization art flow with nature. So one of my goals was finding art park trails.
Mhm.
And that I will say has been such a joy to see. There's there's two over on Langley on Whidbey Island, and one's called Price Sculpture Park, and all of it's all friendly, no dogs, but these artists from around the world, you'll be walking on this trail and all of a sudden there'll be this amazing piece incorporated like in with the nature,
Mhm.
and it's so neat to see it come together and have these like surprises going through the trees, because I'm used to just walking and seeing nature's beauty as well. But to see how these artists incorporated their art in with nature is amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
there was another one called Earth Sanctuary. Clay Sculpture Forest was one, and Earth Sanctuary is another one. They're not too far from each other. So if you go over to Langley, if you plan a full day,
Mm-hmm.
you can do both. And the Earth Sanctuary is a little bit, well, I'll say a lot more spiritual. It's in ley lines. And I don't know if anyone knows what ley lines are that's listening. You can look that up. They're magical places and spaces on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some Buddhist. There's a temple, Buddhist temple. There's a Indian Native American medicine wheel, and they encourage you to bring a blanket and a book and find these different spots and sit for a while and meditate and things like that. There's like a little mini, what I call kind of a Stonehenge there. So it's really been neat to see these places that they've incorporated with the nature of things.
Well, I like that idea too. There's a little reserve here in Mill Creek that has done some of that with, but not to that extent. Maybe not art, but I like what they've done is they've kind of left this space of nature alone and let the wildlife, just be in this little nature
Hmm.
reserve. And there are beavers in this little place, and they've
I
kind of
love beavers. They're so cute.
and you walk through this and you're just always like looking for them. You can tell
Yeah.
they're there because you can see where they've eaten the trees, and you just look for them, and there's and I've only ever seen them one time. I've only managed to catch the beaver one time, and it was the one time that I didn't have my phone on me to take a picture. I'm
They let you catch them that time. They sure know you're there, but they don't want to be. They let you see them that time. They said, "Okay, let's give Kev a shot."
like, here's your one shot. We're coming out of
That's
the
right.
dam.
That's
Actually,
right.
I saw the beaver swimming in they have a little dam built in there, and then the beaver came out, and it was interesting to see. But what I find interesting about that connection to that forest, and being a part of nature, is you start to become very aware of everything in that environment and how it changes. Have you found that in your experience as well?
The thing that I love about the seasons
Hmm.
is, although I've been to these parks before many times, each time I go, it's different.
Hmm.
Different season, I get a different feeling. It looks completely different. Um, the energy is very different on the different parts of the seasons. So, I've said to a friend, "Hey, do you want to go over to Earth Sanctuary?" "Oh, well, we've been there before." And I'm like, "Well, go again because it's not the same at this time of year." So it's just like any hike you go on, there's going to be different animals that have had different babies. That the beavers will have different litters, at different
Hmm.
times. So maybe they had more helpers for damming and building a dam.
Hmm.
So, different times of the year and different seasons have always made it completely different. And I wouldn't say I have a favorite time. I love them all for very different reasons.
Right.
Um, when none of the leaves are on the tree, a lot of people will say, "Oh, spring is the best because of flowers," or "fall is the best because of the leaves on the tree." I really do love like winter also because you
Me
can
too.
see the nests in the trees. Like the leaves are gone, so you can see a lot more detail of what would be hidden in the springtime.
You know what? I love that you said that because some of my best memories ever have been walking in the snow all by myself. When you're connected to nature and you're walking in the snow, nobody else is out,
Yeah,
and there is such a quiet
yeah.
to
La-
winter that I
yeah,
love.
last year I got into snowshoeing because I just love to be outside. And I thought, how can I be outside and and more?
Mhm.
And it's very different, because you're right. There's this, it's so quiet that there's the sound of snow.
Mhm.
Um, it's hard to explain, but the crispness of it
Mhm.
and the magic of seeing how high we're walking on top of 8 to 9 feet of snow. So in the summertime, when I would go on this trail, I have a friend that does geocaching. So the only time you can find one of these geocachings is when it snows, because the snow is so high up to almost the top of the tree, and that's where you're walking. So the
Mhm.
geocache is at the tippy top of a tree. So in the summertime, unless you climb the tree, you can't get it. But
Mhm.
yeah, you literally can touch the treetops, walk on top of the bridges because you're walking on top of the snowpack, and you see different little footprints in the snow. And that's been one of my most favorite things. I just recently got into that. So I
Mhm.
would tell people, nature is healthy for all kinds of melancholy, stir crazy, cabin fever, depression. Don't feel like summertime is the only time you can do it. Get yourself some snowshoes. They have them on in the stores, Amazon also. You invest in $40 pair, and you are good to go. And you get your friend with the car with four-wheel drive, and pack a peanut butter sandwich, and there you go.
Exactly. So we found a little park that did geocaching. Speaking of it,
Hmm.
a couple of years ago, and that was the funnest thing. Whoever was doing it had left everything in, like those little
The mhm.
Rubbermaid.
Yeah, they're all different. The
Mhm.
containers will be very different. And you write your name and the
Mhm.
date that when you were there, and you can see where other people have found it. You can leave a treasure and take a
Mhm.
treasure, but you have to leave one if you're going to take one. But yeah, she's a really fun friend, to go exploring with, because that's her jam. She likes to
Like the
geocache.
geocache.
Yeah, so it's like a little treasure hunt, and I'm so surprised. I'm like, how do you find these things? Because I could never find them, but she's used to it, and stuff like that. And it also pulls you out of your comfort zone a little bit off of the trail so that you can explore a little bit off trail. Even they're everywhere. Like if we go down to Golden Gardens in Seattle, they would be there. We went down to Ocean Shores one time, and we went on a little geocache adventure down there. So it's a good way to kind of get you out adventuring also, and then seeing how many other people have found that one too.
Exactly. And, when I found my little container on the walk, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I happen to have, tumbled stones in my pocket. So I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm going to leave these tumbled stones and
yeah,
whoever.
you would have tumblestones in your
Right.
pocket. I still have that beautiful one you gave me for my birthday.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I just love it. I will set it out sometimes with some other stones of mine under the full moon to do like a nice full moon energy absorption. And I swear, it just, when I hold it, it will feel warm to me. It will get warm and resonate energy. And that's what I feel, it embodied part of you. Like when you created that stone for me, I just feel calm and
Mhm.
accepted when I
Mhm.
have it. And you have always made me feel very calm and accepted. And so thank you so much for that, you tumblestone rock carrier.
I leave them in the forest all the time.
Hmm.
And sometimes I put them in obvious places and I'll just be like, okay, whoever needs to find this will find this. I actually had a little tiny resin stone with a little angel in it. And it was interesting. This was probably, a month ago. I was looking at it and I just felt like, oh, I need to take this into the woods today and leave it for somebody.
Yeah.
And I have this convenient little stump.
Your altar.
my little my
An
little
altar.
gifting place.
Yes.
And so I left the angel there, this little resin angel. I'm like, okay, so whoever comes along, whoever finds it, it's meant to be theirs. And if I come back next week and it's gone, then I'm still supposed to keep it. And I love doing little tiny things. Like I also leave marbles for little kids,
Yes. Yes.
and I had done it, and I had seen these little kids in the trail looking for him, looking all over the place. I left these little tiny
Yeah.
little marbles, and this funny thing, this little kid is just walking along and like, oh, I found one, I found one.
I love to encourage that too. Like, do
Mhm,
some neat little rock paintings, do it on rock because they're organic
mhm.
and it doesn't disrupt nature.
Right.
So, and it's fun to come upon and find something neat like that. And they don't disrupt the nature. They go right back into the whole flow of things. And if someone wants to leave it, they can. If someone wants to take it, they can. It
Mhm,
can incorporate itself back into nature. So I've always loved doing that. I think those are great kid projects too, is to do a little rock painting and
mhm.
then go and find a trail and make it a magical art forest yourself. Anywhere can be. Even if I'm in the city, a girlfriend and I, she lives in Queen Anne, and we meet up for our once a month Queen Anne walks. And
Mhm.
you would be surprised with how many cool little secret walkways and little secret parks and green belts are up there in Queen Anne.
Oh,
And
I know.
it's such, yeah, so many. It's such a joy to walk to. And there's someone that leaves, they paint little rock houses. So there's these little houses that they paint and place them all over. So we always see them when we're on our walks and the similar like the little kids, you're never too old to go, oh my gosh, do you see this one? Oh my
Right.
gosh, look at this one.
You know what is our office? Our work office is in Queen Anne,
Hmm.
and you know what? That hill up there, that
Yes.
is quite a workout.
Well, there's both sides. There's Taylor Avenue, and then there's like the Queen Anne Avenue Hill, and yeah, both of them. That is our workout. We walk all the way up, and one of our things is there's a beautiful cemetery that's in the back up at the top of Queen Anne. That's a beautiful place to walk around. It has a lot of history in this cemetery, and there's a city coyote that lives in this cemetery. And we see this coyote. I don't know if he just comes out for us or
Mhm.
what, but he comes up there and says hi to us almost every time we're walking around that cemetery.
That is cool. Now, do you walk? Is it usually in mid-afternoon when you see this coyote?
Yeah, yeah. Probably around 1 or 2 ish. We do day walks. I usually meet her at 11, and then we start our walk, and we're kind of done by 1:32 back down at her house. And he's always up there, kind of hanging out.
Nice. I'm gonna
Hmm.
look for that next time. Now, do you ever go across the footbridge on Elliott? Is it Elliott Way there?
Yeah, we've done that before too. Yeah, I really like that footbridge. There's all kinds of little pea patch gardens and stuff up there too. She lives over at the bottom of Taylor, and so we usually start and walk up Taylor. There's a magical house also that is a magic Harry Potter house. It's at the top of Queen Anne. The street it's on is called Nob Hill, and they're used to people driving by it and walking by all day long. It is very neat. It's very whimsical, and we call it the Harry Potter house. You can't miss it if you get to the top of Queen Anne and you find the street Nob Hill and
Okay.
you drive down that street. You'll know it when you see it. It's the Harry Potter house.
Harry Potter house.
It is. It is so cool.
If I find it, I will take a picture. I'll say, you'll never guess what I found the Harry Potter house.
Oh, it's so neat.
You know what's interesting about that bridge that crosses Elliott Way? I have an acute fear of heights sometimes.
Mm.
And the first time I ever stepped onto that bridge, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel I feel terrible on this bridge." Like the fear was just like so the bridge is really high. It goes over a busy street,
Yeah,
and the path up to it, there's just like metal railings that you can
yeah,
see over the side.
yeah.
And as I'm going down it, whenever I walk across that bridge, I have to walk in the dead center of it so that I can't see over the left or the
Yeah,
right. Because the second I do, I start having
feeling
you know that woozy
vertigo,
feeling, right?
like a vertigo feeling. Yeah. So, are you afraid of Ferris wheels too?
Yeah, I don't go on Ferris wheels either.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Ferris wheels either. We went on the one down in Seattle. That is actually, you don't feel so bad because you're enclosed in something. So you're like in a carriage
Mhm.
almost. And that's not too bad. And I like to, when we did that, it was neat because you could see the water and the sound. You could see seals playing. You could see far out to Whidbey Island or West Seattle. So it's like experiencing nature from above. So like zip lining is a way experiencing nature from above. I
Yeah.
did that one time when I was in Guatemala. Um, we went into these mountains that these Tikal ruins were in. And this was in the early 2000s. Things weren't as regulated as they were, and this local village wanted to make extra money with their zip lining, and so they literally just tied ropes together and had a little piece of board on a tree and sent you on your way. And I was a lot more adventurous in my youth, but it was really neat to do that too, because you're in a canopy of things where, you don't really get to see as a human on the ground. That was cool.
Nice. There's something there's something about energy sensitive people like you and me and trees and a
Mhm.
connection that can come to them. And sometimes I know that, throughout my life, I've gotten messages from trees. Some of them have been profound. And I have you experienced this as well?
Oh, yes. Um, it's a lot of it is a vibration that
Mhm.
happens for me, and I just as let's say a music sends its message through vibration.
Mhm.
So many things send their message through vibration, and it's almost like once you can get down, like tap 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 tap, birds, SOS is a vibration. So I believe that that's how they communicate, is through their own resonance of vibration. So, and then it creates a picture in my brain that becomes the thought and the
Mhm.
vision of what it's giving me, and then I receive it.
Mhm.
Um, because it's just similar to, I believe, um, animals do similar ways to, like trees and nature. They don't speak English, they don't speak Spanish, they don't speak German. Their language through communication is through a vibration.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'll receive a picture. I have to almost touch it though a lot of times for some to get clear, to
Mhm.
get something clearly. So there is something to be said about, oh, a tree hugger. Then yes, I'm a tree hugger and a toucher because that's how I get a clear vision.
I mean, exactly. One of the most profound messages I got from a tree was a weeping willow tree.
Hmm.
Huge weeping willow tree, and it had a canopy, and it was a tree, that was in a property that we rented. And I was mowing the grass, and I started seeing these pictures of the end of dying, and this tree was like, "It's my last week. It's my
Oh,
last week. I'm not going to be here anymore." And I'm like, and I'm thinking, well, this tree is telling me it's this last week, and I'm like, and I'm answering this tree back. I'm like, don't be silly. You've been here for centuries.
right.
There's nothing that's going to knock you down. And that Friday, they had sold this property,
Oh my
and they
gosh.
were they were getting ready to build a house. They took a backhoe
Yeah.
and ripped down this beautiful
Oh my
weeping willow
gosh.
tree. And it really was its last week, and it had told me while I was mowing the lawn that it was its
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah. They hear, they know what's going on.
Mhm.
And it's the exact thing, which is true. And people see it over and over again. If you have two house plants and you speak nicely to one, it grows, and you yell
Mhm.
at the other, it doesn't. They hear our vibrations.
Yeah.
They translate, and they know what's going on around them. So
Mhm.
it's that whole thing, nature is crying.
Mhm.
Nature will let you know when things is going on, and it needs to rebirth in its own way of protecting itself.
Mhm.
Sometimes I believe, when people will be like, well, why are all these fires happening? Why is this happening? Why is that? Sometimes nature's only way to cry and to scream out and to say, enough. We need to renew. We need to renew. You're not giving us the best air to breathe. You're not helping us with the global warming. You're not encouraging this earth. So it's going to scream out any way that it can to be heard.
Mhm.
And what do humans do? We only listen when things are disrupted and uncomfortable for us.
Right.
That's
That's very true.
generally the only time we will listen. And our human ego will put ourselves before anything else. Until I'm uncomfortable, it's okay. you know
Right. Right. Exactly.
so the fires and stuff like that, some flooding, fires. I feel like a lot of that nature's way, global warming is nature's way of saying enough. Listen to me.
I I agree with that. As a matter of fact, there is this amazing documentary, and I don't know if you've ever seen it. It is called "The Call of the Forest: The Forgotten Wisdom of Trees,"
Oh, nice.
and I've probably watched it. I don't know how many times now.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to watch it now.
Yeah, it's the Call of the Forest, the Forgotten Wisdom. There's this Irish Canadian woman, PhD doctor. It's Dr. Diana Bedford Kroger is the one that goes through and talks about. Um, she was orphaned as a child, and she was Irish, and so this Irish community just kind of took the reins and raised her, and she went on to be this very uh, profound student of nature and forests, and understanding that forests weren't just like how they do clear cuts here in Washington, where they
Yeah.
go in and
For
they just
yeah,
clear everything.
forests aren't here just for our human consumption.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they found that it was the variety of trees that created the aerosols that provide health.
Mm,
There's alpha pinene and beta pinene
mm-hmm.
that come off of not only the trees but also the undergrowth, the fungi that live there, and all of the other components of the nature flora put off these aerosols that heal.
Mm-hmm.
And she makes a good point. She's like 90% of all medicine that we've invented, that we've come up with, comes from plants.
Yes. Anything, though, this is what I explain, or I want to remind people too. Anything and everything you do have, consume, comes from this earth.
Mhm.
So if we aren't taking care of this planet and this earth and the things that are on it, we will also perish ourselves. Any kind of medicine, our cows, our dairy, everything, the homes we live in come from this earth. And that's why it blows my mind, the mentality of people just for today. I
Right.
always think of, the sustainability. We need to think of tomorrow, because if we don't start today, there will be no tomorrow. Um, the thing I like about seeking out purposely trails and spaces and places and stuff is, like the big Price Sculpture Forest. It was owned by the Price family, and they were going to build a house on it, but they felt like it needed to be just preserved. And there's a Native American cemetery there in the middle of it, and they just had this calling that this whole place and space needed to be preserved. So that's ended up what they ended up doing is in a collective with the community there and with other people made this a whole preservation place that can never be built on. No homes can be put on that and no roads. So I just love it. Earth Sanctuary, the Price Sculpture Forest have the same sense of community. There's in Earth Sanctuary, there's the osprey birds that nest there, and it's a bird sanctuary as well. So if there's anyone into bird watching or anything like that, if you start clearing out all of these things, they don't have anywhere to go, like your beaver.
Right.
Your beaver, if there's nowhere for them to dam and do their thing, that's what they do. That's their life. And if we clear out everything and reroute all these rivers and tear down all the beaver dams, then we're not going to have this ecosystem that works in tandem with everything.
Exactly.
Everyone wants salmon on their dinner plate when they go to a restaurant, but they don't want to keep the rivers flowing for the salmon to keep going. That's a song. We're going to make it. Keep the rivers flowing for the salmon to keep going.
Right.
We'll start our own nature trail song.
Right. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right? Keep the rivers flowing for the salmon to get going.
Well, you know what? On speaking of bears, on one of our walks, we saw, of all things, we were walking in a little park north of here,
Mhm.
and it's Holworth Park, right? But I call it
Yeah.
Hogwarts Park.
Yeah.
And we were just standing there, and I think it was you that saw the bald eagle sitting there up in the
Probably.
tree. And what was interesting about that day is, I had never seen one up close like that before.
They're
And
huge.
I was shocked at how big it was. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that thing
They're
looks
huge. You know what's given my heart so much comfort is if we do something about it and we start to be proactive, nature craves to redo itself and
Mhm,
rebuild. And
mhm.
they had started the bald eagle and hawk like conservations and preservations. And now there are so many more.
Right.
I see them more often than ever this last 5 years. I see so many and so much more, and it just warms my heart where I'm like, there's one too, there's another
Yes.
one.
Yeah. And, living here, the other thing that is interesting about, especially Bothell,
Mm-hmm.
people probably don't know, people in other parts of the country probably don't know that Bothell is a crow roosting place.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And when it comes to sundown, here in Bothell and, in Mill Creek as well, right as it's getting close to sundown, you look up in the sky and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of crows,
Yeah.
all flying south into Bothell, downtown Bothell.
Yeah. It's like a blanket
It
that's
is.
that's flowing over. And that is one of the most magical things I love to watch is
Mhm,
the birds in tandem when they're doing like their blanket flow, and they just weave together. And
mhm.
I mean, in my mind, I'm like, it's dancing. It's
Right.
birds dancing. And how do they know the next step? That it's just in them?
Exactly.
Yeah. Telepathically, they're like, go right, go left, up
Right.
and down.
And the crows are so loud though, and it's like a huge
Yeah.
party every
They
day.
call that a murder of crows.
Right.
A murder of crows.
What's funny is when people first move here to Bothell and they happen to be downtown they might be downtown just after sundown, and
Uh-huh.
there's all these crows flying around the stadium and landing everywhere and just making a big party.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, is this like kind of like the Omen?
And that's sad when certain animals get a bad rap
Right.
from a movie or something, because they are some of the most magical. They're messengers. They like sparkle things.
They do.
And there's so many stories which are true of different things where a girlfriend of mine, she has started feeding this one specific crow that comes to her backyard, and it started leaving her trinkets.
Yes.
So she would leave it some food outside on her porch and just watch it from the window, and it would see her and she would see it. And so it recognized. And then after about a month of doing that, the bird was leaving her little shiny objects. Anything from a shiny tin foil, something it got somewhere, but all these little objects of things, and it was
Mhm.
so special. She started collecting them and putting them, she calls her crow bowl, her jewel treasure, and
Mhm.
it's so special. These animals and all species are all sentient beings, and everything processes, thinks, and communicates in its way. They all feel love and
Mhm.
acceptance, and want to be included in its own tribe. So I just really enjoy when people can respect that.
Right.
um, I say too, if you're on a trail, you're walking, you're in their element. If you see animals, you see the coyote, you see the bear, you see the beavers, you see the crows. They're not there for you to take these pictures like your beaver was like, not today, not today.
Right.
You know, they don't need everybody knowing they're there. And the last thing they want is someone um making something bigger than it's not. The bear leaves you alone. They're not going to bother you if you don't bother them.
Right.
And I get upset a bit when people are like, "Oh, we need to hunt down this bear that was on this trail, or this coyote, or this whatever." And it's like, it wasn't doing anything. You're in its element, and where else are they supposed to go? A lot of people too need to be reminded: don't feed these animals. Don't perpetuate it either.
Mhm.
So don't feed them. They're not your pets, just as if your husband and your children aren't your pets. These animals are not your pets
What?
either. Right?
What's not my pet?
We have our domesticated, cats and dogs and things, but bears and coyotes and those animals, they're not meant to be your pets. They're just meant to be observed from afar in their element. So I want to encourage people just to respect that.
Right.
Maybe
Exactly.
share it with someone, personal, or something like that, and encourage people to not feed them.
Right. There's a famous animal communicator. You just reminded me. Her name is Anna Breitenbach.
Mhm.
I think she is from South Africa. Maybe. Yeah,
Mhm.
South Africa. She is amazing. They had her come and speak to sharks.
Nice.
There were sharks coming into a part of I think it was South Africa.
Yeah.
All of a sudden these great white sharks were coming into part of the water that they'd never been in.
Yeah.
And
And
so they brought Anna Breitenbach in to find out what was up with them. Can you
what's
come
going
and
on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you come and talk to these sharks and see why they're here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she tunes into the sharks and she starts talking to them.
Yeah.
And the sharks tell Anna Breitenbach, "We're here to let you know there's a fish that we feed on that is disappearing.
Yeah.
Our food is disappearing, and we need you to
Yeah.
pay attention. We need you to know." And so
Yeah.
she let the the scientists know that this is why
Yeah.
they had come in. They needed us to know that they had, this fish was being
Their
fished to
food source. Yeah.
right. And she let them know this, and they changed it. They said, okay,
Yeah,
we're not going to have any hunting season on this particular fish anymore.
that's great. And that comes full circle too, where um, we were just saying nature in all forms will start screaming at you
Right.
when something is wrong. And until it makes us as humans uncomfortable, we don't listen. So that is wonderful that they had the right of mind to bring in someone and something to say, hey, what's going on here? Maybe we can figure something out and work together. Whatever
Yes.
happened to working together? Let's figure it out together.
Right. Right. If people on the if people want to look up Anna Breitenbach, she is
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh gosh, I love. I knew a gal that was an animal communicator also, and she expressed to me just as trees and different things, they don't speak English. They speak through vibrations, different things. Animals, she had said to me, they're almost telepathic. They go through pictures.
Right.
So, she's like, try it on your cat, try it on whatever. So stop thinking of what you don't want your cat or dog to do. Start thinking of what you want them to do and send them
Exactly.
that picture. And so I started getting a lot more in tune with my animals. And now my kitty cat will, all of a sudden I'll get a picture of her food bowl empty.
Oh, nice.
And I'll go over and I'll see her food bowl is empty and she's meowing to feed her. So obviously that works. So, the vibrations of the trees are a lot more vibration, where I feel like animals are a little bit more telepathic in that way. But I think there are different people. I think everyone has an ability for things like that. We all come from the same cloth of, our ancestors. We're all related and compatible in some way. It's just like playing a guitar or a violin. Someone has to show you how to pick it up and how
Right.
to start fine tuning it for
Right.
sure.
And you know what Anna Breitenbach discovered is we all have this ability to do that.
Yeah.
We all have the ability to, it's part of our natural. Like they found that Aborigines
Yeah.
never lost their ability to communicate with animals,
Yeah.
and that they do it all the time. And they listen to what they track the animal when they're hunting by saying,
Yeah.
you know, can we, will you make this sacrifice? They ask the animal if they're
Yeah.
going to do that, which
A
I think
lot
is fascinating.
a lot of indigenous people have a lot more respect. Well, they've learned that way too,
Mhm. Right.
to actually appreciate and say thanks and have a little bit more respect for things giving their life, so they can sustain theirs.
Exactly.
And the trees are the same, the trees gave their life so that we could be warm inside this building that we're in. And
Yep.
everything comes from this earth. The metals that we have, the medications that we have, every single thing came from this planet. So
Mhm.
again, and coming up on closing here, if we do not take care of this planet, there will be no more us.
Mhm.
Or even you think you're uncomfortable now, you'll be real uncomfortable in 100 years, with your ancestors if you leave it in
Mhm.
shambles for them.
Yep. And
So
also, the other thing is, if anybody, and I'll just say this as we're closing here, Heather, if anybody is, in a situation where you're stuck or you don't know the answers, or you're frustrated, you can always go into nature, and nature has this gentle way of
mm,
taking care of you. Like if you wanted to just try this experiment this week, go to the river, whatever river is close to you,
yeah,
and or a beach, and find yourself a stone that has been tumbled around by water,
right.
and pick it up and feel what it speaks, what it says to you, and how it speaks to you.
And I
Na-
love that you incorporated the stone in the rock, because like I said before too, rocks are our very first oldest. of the oldest. It is what the planet is made of. That
Mhm.
is the only thing that is out in space also. It is
Right.
universe. So the rock manifests and holds the energy of
Of everything.
life. Yes, of everything. So the
Well,
geology of that is so magical. Rocks are just so magical.
they are. I love rocks. So,
Yeah,
Heather,
and
uh,
one will speak to you. You, like you said, find your water, find your
okay,
rock that speaks to you, because one will, it'll call you, pick it up, hold it. And I have the worry rock. I used to get anxiety a little bit in different places and spaces, and I have a little rock I keep in my pocket that I'll rub a little bit, and it's
me
helped
too.
so much.
Me too. Well, Heather,
You've always got rocks in your
I know.
pocket.
So I
Thank
can't.
you for having me.
You are so welcome. I'm so glad we got to have you on again, and I hope we can have you in the future as well. You are
Of course, we'll have to do a nature walk soon, speaking of it.
right,
So,
right.
yeah, maybe my birthday's in April. That's when we did one of our last ones. So, don't
Mhm.
worry, I'll remind you when it is and we'll do a nature walk.
Absolutely.
I will be 50, so we'll do a 50-year-old nature walk.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Take
Hey,
care, Kevin. Thank
you too,
you.
you too, Heather. Thank you. So that's going to do it for us on the New Bridge Radio Show. We'll see you next week with our guest, Carrie Olson. Have a great rest of the week.